So Sam and I literally had a date over chicken wings, which is kind of funny. And so now we're going to try them on you. So I'm going to split the deck.
It is. I keep thinking about that, man.
Yeah.
St. Augustine lives in my brain rent-free.
Yeah.
He's not paying rent
He's
up
not
there.
paying.
You still have to be willing to ask yourself the difficult questions of why you're doing it.
Right.
And interrogating that.
Yeah.
That's valuable. Even when you are doing something that you're sincere about, right? Mm-hmm. Still kind of processing through some of that.
Yeah, like for me, it transitioned from me doing great things because I think I'm great to doing great things because he's great and I'm grateful. This is Disruption. Back in the day, like I'm talking 1920s or something, like when film first came out, it was about crafting a story, sure, but it was about, in a movie, it wasn't like a play, so you could cut things. You could stop the film, load up an explosion, start the film, do the explosion, and then have people like magically like come from the background, and then you could maybe place two layers of footage over each other and then create. And then of course you had the sets and everything else too. So it's like movies could go beyond just the normal plays and performances because they were like plays and performances, but they were with that magic element over it. So it was like watching magic tricks happen.
Yeah.
That's why like the first movie producers were always like the illusionists and magicians. Yeah. They started out as magicians.
Right. You were kind of, on the one hand, you were like doing practical stuff because you had to like have people jumping off trains like Charlie Chaplin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of early acrobatics too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. So I always kind of found that interesting. And nowadays it's all CGI.
Gosh darn CGI. The computers are stealing our jobs. Us real artists still do things by hand. Alex just told me. You can confirm this is true. So we've actually filmed this on authentic film. I think it's a 72 millimeter film, and he actually colors each frame in by hand with a crayon.
Yeah, with Crayola.
This is what we do. This is what we do for you. For you, our beloved episode. Podcast listeners.
Now you know why I spend hours and hours. So please donate. You can donate now on our website.
We don't have a website.
No. Actually,
we have an Instagram page.
We do have a Spotify page. I mean, we have a Spotify because Spotify for podcasters generates a web page for everybody.
Okay, yeah, but that's not like a real website.
So like that's where you can donate because I've turned the donation thing on, but nobody ever uses it. So
we encourage you to try it out. See if it works.
Try it out. See if it works. But make sure that you put $100 in there. Otherwise, it might not work. But if you put $100 in there, you could try it.
Yeah.
And let us know. Let us know if it works.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have an Instagram page, right? Yeah. You can contact us there. Just see, did the $100 go through, and we'll confirm whether or not that happened. We strongly support that. Mm-hmm. It's for the kingdom. You know, God blesses those who sow. Gonna get into the Benny Hinn stuff. We've decided to rebrand. This is something we're gonna talk about. We've decided to rebrand. We are now a prosperity gospel ministry. That's what we're gonna do from now on.
But speaking of rebranding, okay, this is the facts. We actually are rebranding, but we're not going to be a prosperity gospel.
No, we are not. We love our souls too much. We don't want to be damned as false teachers who have led the sheep astray. Yeah. We are not a pro of that.
We are actually grateful for what we do, so we're not. Yeah, but the truth is we are actually rebranding into something else. So maybe you know a little bit about this. Of course, I mean I have the notes right here, and I probably know about it. But maybe, I mean, you have the gist. You're the content guy, right? So you probably have more of the gist on what are we doing with.
So today we're kind of going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing with Disruption now, in the past, and more importantly and excitingly, what we're going to do with Disruption in the future. Mm-hmm. So maybe to start us off, we should talk about where Disruption has been in the past. right? Because what episode are we on? 44?
This is 45.
45. Kind of one of the things that would be nice to talk about is what Disruption has been doing so far. So like 44 episodes recorded already. This is 45 then. And it's been a lot of topics. There's been a lot of cool content. And I've listened to a bit of it too. I mean, now that I'm the podcast co-host, it makes sense that I've listened to some of the podcasts before I joined to help. But do you want to maybe talk a little bit?
I could talk about the past, because I was more just involved with the past.
Yep.
And you're involved with more of the present, future. But in the past, so yeah, I mean, man, we've come a long way. When I first started this, so this is now Disruption's first year birthday. That actually happened already.
Happy birthday to you.
Ooh, like very out of tune. Perfect chorus. Okay.
Auto-tune this in post. No, don't do that.
I could though, because I'm using Logic.
We lose the authenticity, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it's been our first birthday. That happened actually probably in July or June.
Nice.
I just didn't mention it because I totally forgot about that. But yeah, we've come a long way. Started out with my first team that kind of grew, and it was really exciting start. And I would call that the Disruption 1 era, you know?
It was pretty much you and your friends just kind of having fun with the idea of making Christian content.
Yeah. And as I've said before, the origin story has been, I was listening to Tim Keller, loved his podcast on questioning Christianity.
Excellent.
Still sometimes listen to it.
Strong recommend.
Yeah. And I sent it to him as he was kind of coming on the podcast, wondering what it was about. And I was like, well, this is one
of the big inspirations.
This is one of the big inspirations. It was the questioning Christianity. That was one of them. At the time, I also reread Nabil Qureshi's book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. So I reread that, listened to the podcast. It just really, I was working on Pilgrim's Well content too. Pilgrim's Well story is that I posted something on Joel Beakey's views on pedo baptism. It was like he was okay with like believers baptism or something or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And because I posted that, and because it was on our church's YouTube channel, it was like they removed it, and I was like, come on. And I was like, but at that point I was like, well, I want to start my own podcast.
It's fair enough that they want to like very much curate what kind of content they're putting out, but that's tough for you as a creator, as a creative person who kind of wants to engage with different topics that might not align with like a job where you're paid to, you know, make good, great content for a church. When you're doing stuff personally outside of that. Yeah.
And it was interesting too, because early on, I didn't know we were going to tie in Pilgrim's Well with this, but it does have a lot to do with the origin story.
Yep.
I wasn't as, to be honest, when I first started with Pilgrim's Well, like I'm employed creating Pilgrim's Well content. I was creating the content, but it wasn't like my passion project.
Yeah.
Right. But now I have to say that Pilgrim's Well has also come a long way. So this is like kind of like, I'm kind of rooting for Pilgrim's Well, or putting in my own plug. I'm putting my plug in for Pilgrim's Well. We're actually
listen to Pilgrim's Well.
Listen to Pilgrim's Well, because we're actually coming out with Pilgrim's Well content that I am excited to advertise or promote. But we haven't come out with it yet. But like the future of Pilgrim's Well is looking to be very exciting. So you guys should go check it out. Subscribe. That's where I'm posting a lot of things. I'm posting a lot of things on Disruption, so I'm very much involved in like both projects. Yep. But Disruption's origin story was like, it's like my passion project. It's kind of the stuff that I can actually like. I could speak to like the young people,
the youths.
Yeah.
You had a lot of friends you were working with.
Yeah, and I had a lot of friends I was working with, and then now a lot of those friends have kind of moved on in life. Ben has helped me keep the project going, provided actual solid content that was real that people can actually listen to. As we are transitioning into Disruption Part 2.
Disruption Phase 2.
Yeah, it's like we're being kind of metamorphosizing. So I think that is quite exciting. So that's kind of where we've been. we've had an idea of the content. It was going to be for young people. We're disrupting culture, replacing Jesus at the center of it all. But then I'm looking back and I'm scrolling past through all my episodes and I'm like, what do we actually talk about?
Yep.
And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Is like, we're honing in on our mission.
A specific vision of what we want disruption to look like. That's probably a good place to transition into the present day.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
So in the present day, I was deciding. So disruption phase 1 early on, I was already in the mindset of thinking, okay, interesting people that I talk to or hang out with or come across. Should I or should I not bring them on as a guest on the podcast? And then when GRCC really hit in my school, work really hit spring. Was it spring? Yes, it was spring. At that point, I just stopped really thinking about disruption. We had to go from uploading weekly to uploading every other week. Took a big break. Wasn't really thinking about guests. Wasn't really thinking about anything until then I start going to BSF.
Bible Study Fellowship.
Bible Study Fellowship.
It's an international organization that has like this structure for Bible studying. They put on young adults groups and adult groups all over the place. Worth checking out, by the way, if there might be one in your area.
Yeah.
That's where
it's great.
We met. We were together in a Bible study group that was reading through the book of John.
Yeah, and then that's where I kind of got to know Stefan. I started to, I didn't really know much about you now. It's kind of weird because it's like we become friends now and we know so much more about each other now.
Exactly.
But when I first met you, I was like, wow, this is like at first I was like, this is a very nerdy guy.
I'm not going to fight that accusation. It's the truth. The truth will set you free. That's in the Bible, right?
There you go. And then like, as I got to know you more, I was like, you're really interested in a lot of the stuff that I'm also really interested in. Well, I was thinking more apologetic side of things.
Yeah.
You were probably coming at this across from more like biblical exegesis kind of thing on John. So I was like obsessed with Tim Keller at the time still kind of. And then, but yeah, it's just sort of like as we interacted, I could kind of tell like, oh, we kind of have this like same.
We're thinking a lot about the same kinds of things.
We're thinking a lot about the same kind of things. During the summer study, which was kind of an unofficial BSF.
It was basically the group leader for our Bible Study Fellowship study of John had aged out. Yeah. And so he basically said to the guys in his group, hey, do you want to study the book of Daniel over the summer? As kind of a way for him to do like kind of a goodbye study to some extent. Yeah. And that was a really cool study, but
I really enjoyed it. It was
really good.
It was fun hanging out.
Because it was the book of Daniel, it forced us to think really hard and put in research.
Right, yeah.
Which was very good.
Yeah. And then that's when it really started to come to mind for me when I started rethinking, oh yeah, I should probably look for disruption guests to speak on. And you kept on like, for you, the research for BSF, for BSF or the Daniel study just kind of came automatically for you.
I wanted to know. I just wanted to know what was going on.
And I thought, boom, that's what I need, because I, to be honest, did do a whole lot of research on BSF. Like,
did you read the book of Daniel?
We were assigned by a group leader to actually do research of surrounding and
read
actually like
book,
listen to the pastor guy, watch the video, and I, to be honest, I slacked off on a lot of it. I tried to do really good. I did really good week 1 of listening to that guy who was talking on the book of Daniel. But and then I just started cramming just the day of that we needed to get our lesson complete.
Classic.
And meanwhile, Stefan's over here doing 5 hours of research, even whether or not he was going to show up.
Sick 2 Mondays in a row. And the Saturday before that, I did like 5 hours of reading and video watching.
Yeah.
And I was like in my dad's study. I pulled down Calvin's commentary on the book of Daniel or something. I didn't spend a lot of time reading it. But it was like, oh yeah, I did so much reading. I'm going to present my opinion on the eschatology of Daniel. And then that Monday I was feeling really sick. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't make it. And then I couldn't make it the week after that either.
Yeah. That was good. But then when you came back, I brought my brother along too. So that was kind of fun because the other guy brought his brother too. So it was like bring your brother to Bible study day. It was like bring your brother to Bible study themed week that week.
Time.
It was fun. I enjoyed listening to your thought process. You laid out all the point of views of, all the different, because Daniel can be kind of a divisive book because you're dealing with
prophecies,
and people, there's a lot of different interpretations on the same kind of like general gist of Daniel. You get the general, you get the prophecy, and then there's just different ways of people interpreting it. This is going to happen before the end, or this is going to happen right at the end times, or no, this stuff has already happened, or no, it's happening continuously. And just as you were presenting, I kind of appreciated how you he had for a guy your age, I'm not like comparing you to some like brilliant pastor expert, but like
I am not comparable to a brilliant pastor expert on any topic, I don't think.
But I was thinking, that's a good, you'd be a good fit for the podcast then. So then
it was funny. It was the middle of, we were just doing Bible study, and at some point you looked over in the middle of a conversation and said,
I know, it's totally random.
Have I ever asked you to be on my podcast?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And then you were like, would you like to be on my podcast? And I was like, yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And then after Bible study, you were like, what do you know about? Do you know about anything interesting? And I was like, I could come up with something probably. And that's how we got the idea of our first episode about St. Augustine and the non-ontology of evil. It was kind of like a post-Bible study talk in the parking lot for 5 minutes sort of thing. Like, hey, this would be a cool topic. So that's what we did. And pretty much right after that episode went out, you texted me, were like, hey, would you like to be the podcast co-host? And I was like, I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that pretty much brings us to where we are now. Yep. So Alex Sikma, Stefan Walicord, and Ben Bessett as the 3 co-hosts of Disruption.
But so then from that point, it was basically, okay, we got together, started the conversation of rebranding, kind of what Disruption is going to be moving forward, which kind of brings us, now we can transition kind of in the future.
Yeah. What are we going to be doing?
What's the content? What's the
point of what we're doing here?
What's the format?
Why are we here? Just to suffer?
Why are we here?
So
because I was born.
We can't answer the existentialist questions of why you specifically are here. That is between you and your creator. However, I think we've got a pretty decent idea of what we want to do with Disruption specifically. Mm-hmm. So we kind of started by saying, okay, what are we doing? What's our purpose here? And we made 3 big purpose statements. We want to engage young people, we want to disrupt culture, and we want to center Christ in everything that we do. And that's kind of been the point of Disruption all along, but we wanted to really make it explicit. That is our focus. That is what we want to do. With the 2 of us co-leading this, that is going to be the purpose that drives every decision we make. Mm-hmm. And then based on that purpose, we're going to say, what kinds of content? How do we serve young people? How do we disrupt culture and ask difficult questions? How do we center Christ? And we were going to talk about philosophy, theology, current events, big questions, life struggles, apologetics, right? So our content is going to be driven by that new purpose, and we're really going to hone in on that, really going to focus on that as our main drive. And our decision-making apparatus for how we're going to do future content.
Right. Yeah.
And that's going to involve some changes to the format of our episodes, probably some changes to what our Spotify page looks like. Our YouTube.
Some things are going to change.
Yep. In an exciting way, because I think, as we've talked over the past couple weeks, I think they're going to be big improvements too. Yeah. With a renewed focus on what we want to accomplish and how we want to serve the kingdom. Do you kind of want to give a life update about where you are right now compared to when people last heard from you?
Yeah, so when you guys last heard of me, I was in probably the Get to Know Sam Alex episode.
The infamous Wings episode?
Yeah, the infamous Wings episode, which was labeled by a lot of people as like, well, it was labeled by Sam as like the worst episode in Disruption by Sam himself, and he was on it, and he was the main theme of it. We've actually done a lot of like poor episodes intentionally.
This is in the running for one of the worst episodes so far. Fingers crossed.
Well, it actually hasn't been quite that bad. Our worst episodes have been train wrecks from the very beginning, because we wanted to get a bunch of laughs and whatever. We wanted to do something that was funny.
Now Disruption is never going to be funny again.
Yeah.
We're going to ban laughter on set. No more giggling.
Edit
We're professionals.
But yeah, this one hasn't really been this one hasn't been a train wreck yet. I feel like we've been very strategic and intentional. We've been talking about the future of our content.
Absolutely. I do think it's going to need some trimming though. Which is probably going to be cut out 50% of what we're saying right now.
So the last time you heard about me was probably in that one of the useless episodes. And I was in college. I was probably dating at the time. It's not happening anymore. Yeah, a lot has changed. I was at GRCC.
Have you graduated yet?
Not officially.
So you're in the process of graduating.
Yeah. Put in my transcript.
What's the transcript focused on?
So it is on associate's degree in recording technology, or associate's degree in music.
Yeah.
That was the big thing that I learned in music, with a focus on the recording technology.
If only there was some way you could apply your knowledge of recording technology to a podcast.
I know.
If only.
But it was funny. It's kind of funny how that worked out, because I think I thought I was going to use this for music, and it turned out I was like, I don't really like doing the musical content, because I can listen to songs for hours and hours on end, trying to tweak the sounds the way I want to tweak them. But my whole in the background, as I'm working on this music, my brain is starving for information. And it's just
your brain is starving for information.
It was. And I don't know, I think I was doing music because I talk about my core sin. There's mega churches that talk about core lies, and that's a psychology thing that they like to bring up. I don't believe in the core lie nonsense. My core sin, or maybe one of them, is that I'm really great. I can make great stuff. Look at me. Look how interesting I am. Look at all this other stuff. In order to do that, I had to perform really well, probably spend money, spend time on this sin of, look at how great I am. Look at how interesting I am. Look at the great stuff I'm coming out with. I'm coming out with great stuff. And so the music was just kind of feeding that. I was only doing music for that. Yeah. Not really for anything else. So it's that's pretty expensive. I'm just thinking of time. Oh yeah. Just in terms of time. I spent a lot of time on that. And wasn't feeding my soul, even though I tried to convince myself it was, so that I could keep spending time on that. And other people around me wouldn't tell me that it's a sin.
Sure. Well, it's not necessarily a sin.
Because it's not necessarily a sin.
It's the question intention of your heart. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the heart part behind it. Why am I doing it?
You know what St. Augustine would say about that? Disordered loves.
Oh, yeah. This is hearkening back to our episodes.
It is. I keep thinking about that, man.
Yeah.
St. Augustine lives in my brain rent-free.
Yeah.
He's not paying rent
He's not paying rent.
Well, because it's so applicable. We keep chasing things in this life that are good.
Yeah.
But they're not like God. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of idolatry, is when you put something that might be good for you on a pedestal to the level where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So you think music was that for you? Being in
Probably,
the music
especially
industry,
the music production. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to say my piano, all the hours I put on piano lessons and all my amazing piano teachers, that was not part of it. It was probably more so my music production. And I wouldn't even say the collaboration part of it either. All the music producers that I collaborated with, that was great fellowship, great time. Especially with my brother. It's so much fun. But it's
that's cool.
There's just another part of it, just in my private time. Why am I doing this? Why am I spending so many hours on this? Yeah. So really getting into the podcasting was more so okay, there's knowledge that's coming into my brain that I think I was made for this. And I don't think I was made for music. I think music would feed a lot of people well in non-sinful ways. And so if they're made for that they should do that. And I feel I'm still going to do music. Yeah. Just, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to have a different intention for why I'm doing it. And I was journaling about this still today. But I wonder if the origin story of the Disruption podcast has also been partially that intention. Yeah. I'm going to do this podcast because this podcast is going to work. It's my passion project. Yeah. And it's going to get me so many views. Yeah. And it's going to be so big. And every strategy, the decisions I made along the way bringing in people that are really social and like to talk a lot and go to a mega church. They have Instagram followers. And so if they do an episode with you, they're going to put it on their Instagram, and and their friends are going to definitely listen because he's involved. So did it become more successful than my music thing? Yeah. But was like the mission focus really there? Well, yeah, it was partially there. But I did have this thing in the back of my mind too that was like, God's going to use this for something, even though I'm using it to serve myself partially.
Yeah.
He's going to still work in me.
That's a valuable discussion, maybe along the lines of total depravity. Total depravity doesn't mean you're as selfish as you could possibly be, or I'm as sinful as I could possibly be. It really means that even in our best motives, there's still an element of misprioritization, sin, selfishness, right? I think when you started the podcast, like I listened to your early episodes, I sense a lot of passion for doing good, important stuff.
Yeah.
But the way that you're talking about it, like, you're recognizing that even when you're trying to do something good, there's still a sense that you still have to be willing to ask yourself the difficult questions of why you're doing it.
Right.
And interrogating that.
Yeah.
That's valuable. Even when you are doing something that you're sincere about, right? Still kind of processing through some of that. What's the mission? And that's a good place to transition into why we decided to. When I came on as co-host, we had quite a few conversations about mission, about goals for the podcast. That was something I wanted to put a big focus on. Why do we do what we do?
That's service.
Yeah, service.
Right.
Kingdom ministry.
Yeah.
And not in the sense that we have something awesome that we need, other people really, really need, to have ministered to them. But in the sense there is a place where young people want serious conversations about challenging topics by people who, are willing to have conversations. Lectures are awesome and sermons are fantastic, but I think what Disruption has the chance to do really well is meet them in a really conversational way. That's still like engaging. That's still the kind of content that's easy to take in and still, be wholesome.
I was listening to a podcast where people are just in kind of, you should technically in theory go really deep in content.
Yeah.
But I sometimes just like to listen to podcasts where people, they present the content, but they're kind of goofing around and then presenting content and then like goofing around as friends do it. And when I listen to those podcasts, they're so much fun. And obviously that's why I'm going to come to them.
Yeah.
And
we live in a world starved of those kinds of interactions. Right. It's tragic.
It feels like they feel like they've become my friends.
Yeah.
So like when I am alone or isolated, I want to listen to a podcast just so I can hear human interaction be fun.
And this is not to say that you shouldn't go outside and hang out with your friends. You should listen to podcasts instead. But it is to say that we want to encourage people to have these kinds of conversations with their friends.
Yeah.
Right? We want to encourage people that young Christians are thinking about deep things, and sometimes they're going to say something really dumb, and sometimes they're going to have a really deep discussion. And sometimes at 3 a.m., both of those things can happen. And I think that's kind of one of Disruption's new purposes is engaging young people. That's part of why we do what we do the way that we do it. And we're going to focus on that a lot coming up.
Yeah, as you may have noticed, or as you will notice, we've taken away the 18 to 29 age bracket.
Yes, if you are 17, you cannot listen. If you are 30, you cannot listen.
Well, I mean, at this time of this recording,
we will find you.
It still is. But like, if future audiences are going back and listening to this recording, it used to be said in our description that we are engaging 18 to 29-year-olds. And that was like the old mission statement because I was really working hard to appeal to my young adult group, which was called 1829 because it was a gathering of 18 to 29-year-olds. So I'm like, if I could really like target this audience,
get the niche,
they
just
would be
hone
like,
in on it.
It would be like advertised to all the people in that like event circle. So it was a total marketing ploy. I'm really wearing my heart on my sleeve in this episode. This is like, I'm revealing all of my deepest, but yeah, we're taking away that because it sounds stupid because it's just, people are like 18 to 29-year-olds. Oh, what? No, we're engaging young people. Like, that's just what we're doing. High schoolers.
And I mean, to some extent, the biggest people we're engaging with are you and me.
Yeah.
Like, literally, we're
Which is really
ministering
funny.
to ourselves. Like, literally,
Yeah.
we're reading books about serious stuff. Like, frankly, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I wanted to grow in my own faith.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually, like, minister meaningfully.
Yeah.
And I don't mean minister as if, like, I know the truth and I have to go out and, like, give it to people. But in
Right.
the sense that I want to use, you know, some of the things I'm passionate about and see if that can be engaging for other people, if that can be helpful for them. Mm-hmm. That can be valuable use of their time.
Because we also mentioned this idea too, but I actually really like this idea of like trading books back and forth and just being like, okay, we have to read this.
Our co-host book club.
For the episode in 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah, so we kind of have like, maybe we'll like form our own book club like between us.
It's a 2-people book club.
Great.
I think that's called a friendship. I think that's what you should call that.
Yeah.
We'll rebrand it.
But it's more fun because it's like being broadcasted. It's like a broadcasted friendship book club.
It's a broadcast.
Wait, okay, scrap our whole rebranded thing meetings that we were doing. We are now officially rebranding to a broadcasted friendship book club.
That's right.
That's what disruption.
You will pay $5.
We're back, everybody. I had to figure out a technical issue, but now we are squared away.
Very amateur. Our camera crew, very amateur. They're underpaid.
And they also don't exist.
Yeah.
The invisible cameramen in the back are slacking today, so I had to slap them around. But we're back. And now we're going to so we've talked about the past. We've talked about the present. Got a little bit in the future. You got to know me a little bit. And I think, is there anything else that was really necessary knowing about me? Oh, I'm going to Puritan Reformed Theological Seminary. Well, no, I'm auditing, actually. I'm not in an MDiv program or any of that.
You're learning.
Very interesting, very fascinating. I think it's a great institution. Personally, we are not being sponsored by them or anything. I'm just authentically saying it's a great institution. I
know a lot of people. I know a lot of students.
Yeah.
I've met a decent amount of like faculty.
Yeah.
I've met Dr. Beakey, and I'm impressed.
Puritan Reformed. Go
PRTS.
check it out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. So now we get to talk about Stefan.
Yay.
And then we can play a little game.
Oh, no.
It's the same game that we played with Flopping Wings episode. Flopping.
The Flopping Wings episode.
No pun intended, but it did flop. And it was... Actually, yeah, you can go as deep in, or not as deep into this as you want, but I think you have a really interesting kind of backstory of...
Deep lore.
Traveling, and you're moving around a lot. So yeah, let's get into that. Where are you from?
You've really hyped me up as if I'm an interesting person.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're talking about? Little do people know I am neither interesting nor do I know what I'm talking about. No, so
So are you American?
That's a loaded question.
How red is your red American blood?
If you cut me, I bleed red, white, and blue. No. So I'm from Austria originally. I was born in a small country in Europe that speaks German.
Can you speak some German for the podcast? I can't
speak German. If I were to speak German on the spot, I would not want to say anything on the spot. Die deutsche Sprache ist wunderbar. Aber sie ist sehr, wie sagt man? Es ist schwierig für mich, dass ich einfach auf einmal Deutsch spreche. It's hard for me to just speak in German on the spot. Okay, calm down, buddy.
Did I actually say anything?
No, you did not.
Okay. I was trying.
My mother tongue is being
I was
mocked.
really trying to respond to what he was saying, but I just couldn't.
You don't have the gift of speaking in tongues. The Spirit has not blessed you, so we emigrated to the United States because my dad wanted to go to seminary. He went to Greenville Theological Seminary in South Carolina.
Is that what you said in German?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I just said German is hard to speak on the spot. Because I have to make up something.
Okay.
Basically. So
okay,
just
cool.
what I said.
Okay.
So we came to the United States. My dad went to Greenville Theological Seminary. We moved around the States a little bit. Mm-hmm. My dad mostly taught... my dad is Reverend Dr. Sasha Walicord. So Reverend Walicord. Doctor. That's the title.
I just like the name... Wait, Sasha Walicord?
Sasha, yeah.
That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Sasha Walicord.
It's like Russian or something.
Oh, so is he Russian?
No, but
he's
his name
Austrian.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
so he's Austrian. Oh, that's really cool.
we kind of move around the United States, and my dad is ministering in churches. He's working as a church planner, and he's teaching at universities and colleges and stuff like that. So we kind of moved around a lot, and like I mentioned in the first episode I was on, I was exposed to a lot of theology and a lot of like thinking seriously about Christian topics. And one of the things that I really appreciate about my dad's ministry is how evangelical he is, in the sense that the gospel message really is central, and the words of the Holy Scripture are really central. That, you know, theological head knowledge is a blessing, but it's a blessing in service of a great Savior. It's not just a good in and of itself, right? And I think in one of the epistles in the New Testament, it talks about like knowledge puffs up. You know, it's kind of love that really matters. You know, love that you show each other, love that comes from God, love that shows that we are one. So that kind of gospel-centered mindset has kind of percolated in my thinking, and it's definitely made me want to be serious about not just knowing arcane facts about theology, but actually being like existentially Christian. That what I believe and what I really put my trust and hope in is Jesus the person. J. Gresham Machen's book, Christianity and Liberalism, kind of focuses on the fact that fundamentalist Christianity, and he uses fundamental not in the way we use it nowadays, but he says fundamental in the sense of not modernist, not like liberal theologically, who actually believes in the virgin birth, the resurrection, stuff like that. He makes the point that Christianity is a religion about a historic person that actually lived, died, and was resurrected. And that's something that's definitely like, okay, we have a faith not centered on a doctrine. We have a faith centered on an event and a person. And that's kind of spoken to me a lot. So I went to Dordt College, now Dordt University in Northwest Iowa. I got an engineering degree. I did an honors program that was basically me being bullied into reading way too much and not getting paid enough scholarships, which was an amazing experience because
but I was gonna say you actually enjoyed it. You weren't you weren't bullied into it.
I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
No, we were bullying ourselves into it. That's the problem. It was all entirely self-inflicted.
You have to do this.
Yes, it's like, you have to read this way too large book. So I got a lot out of that. That's where I read a bunch of C.S. Lewis. That's where I read a bunch of like philosophy thinkers and people who talk about modern society and why it is the way that it is and stuff like that. So I started doing BSF in Grand Rapids because I wanted to know people in the Grand Rapids area when I moved to Michigan after I graduated, and two,
that's another reason why. That's the reason I did it.
Yeah. Actually, I think a lot of people just go to BSF to meet girls, which is not necessarily what I was going for.
That was partially at first what I was going for was just to meet. Yeah, it was to meet people in general, and then eventually, okay, I might find a girlfriend through some connection by another connection. But BSF,
you start actually studying the Bible.
Actually, not really. I mean, you don't really spend a lot of time with girls.
It turns out that Bible Study Fellowship is actually about studying the Bible.
It's actually about studying the Bible.
It's really good at making you actually read the Bible. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Because it really focuses on Jesus.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same like evangelical focus. The like evangel, the good news, the gospel is really the center of it, which is super cool. So when I was asked, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, I feel like I've been reading a lot of things. I feel like I've been thinking about a lot of things. I feel like if I don't actually step forward and use that in some kind of kingdom ministry, I'm basically like burying the talent and complaining about God not doing great things in my life. Like, what the heck, dude?
That's you know? Yeah.
It is really kind of a point where you actually want to do something. You actually want to accomplish something, but you want to accomplish something that serves, not just that boosts you up, right? That's kind of something you were talking about when you were telling your story about disruption. It was like, I want to reorient myself to a service mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's super valuable. And as we've been developing disruption over the past couple of weeks since I became co-host, I think that's something we've kind of both been consolidating on.
Yeah.
That mission, that service-oriented mission focused on this like purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, like for me, it transitioned from me doing great things because I think I'm great to doing great things because he's great and I'm grateful.
I like that.
Yeah.
Jesus is great, and we're grateful.
Yeah. I do things because I'm grateful.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
I used to do things because I think I'm great. I'm like, I'm going to do this because it's going to serve me. It's going to do all this. But then you got to shift that mindset to being like, I'm doing a mission. I'm doing a service. And people think, man, that he must be lousy all the time. And I'm like, oh, so humble and so like humility. And it's actually like, no, we as Christians, we do things actually because we're grateful.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier when you were talking about like Christian content kind of being cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your Christian content is full of Jesus, how can it not be good to some extent? Like, if Jesus is truly the greatest thing in the cosmos, in all of history, if the greatest event in history is Jesus, content, media, culture that's oriented toward Jesus, even if, like, the media polish isn't quite there in the way that a Hollywood blockbuster has gloss and glitter and sheen, it's the greatest thing that you could be doing because it's focused on the greatest God, the only God who gave his son for us. And I think that's something all of us need to like internalize a little bit, that Christianity isn't just good news. It's the greatest news that could have possibly existed. It's the greatest story that could have been possibly told. And the coolest part is it's true. That's something C.S. Lewis talks about. He talks about true myths. He says there's all these myths about death and resurrection and like transcendence and all this stuff. And then there's this story in the first century where it actually happens historically, and people see it and they bet their lives on it. And Jordan Peterson has an episode where he's like, what if this transcendent story is actually true? What if this mythology meets reality and God truly has become man? The narrative meets the historical is the way that he kind of put it. I think that should be motivating.
Yeah, think about how it transforms an entire culture too. We were talking about we're trying to disrupt the culture, placing Jesus at the center of it all. And when I say that, I'm always thinking about like the Reformation and then what kind of happens at the same time is like the Renaissance. The
Renaissance, the scientific revolution shortly afterwards.
And like the Renaissance was actually kind of, I mean, there were two different sides to it.
Yeah.
The one side was very humanistic, and then the other side was actually reformed.
Yep.
And they're both creating art. But when the humanistic side of the Renaissance became eventually more apathetic about the things they're creating, whereas like the Reformed, they were actually motivated to do all the kinds of different skills and craft and art that they were doing was a lot more motivating because they're doing it to like glorify their creator, and that transforms the culture, and it's a much better culture.
Yeah.
You know, when people are studying music, even in a secular university where you have LGBT students all around, you know, people are cussing, people are talking about how much weed they smoked last night. Teacher walks in the room, class starts, we open our textbooks. What do we open our textbooks to? Hymns. Like that's all we talk about in music class is hymns. It doesn't matter how secular your institution is. You have to go to hymns. Why? It doesn't matter how secular the teacher is either. The teacher is forced to go back to the hymns to teach music because that was our foundation. And Bach has just an incredible load of music that came from Bach, and he really set that foundation. And he worked at a church.
Yep.
He had to make it every week. Every week he had to come up with 3 hymns.
That's so cool.
You know, so it's like if you want a really great culture, you have to go back to Jesus. You want great writing.
Yep.
You have to go back to the Bible. You know, every story arc of the most amazing books out there, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, even Star Wars, follows the same structure as the Bible.
They're redemptive story arcs. And I think it's absolutely true that if you cut the best parts of Western civilization, they bleed Christianity.
Yeah.
It's so deeply embedded into everything that the West developed. Christianity. It's kind of always, the Western civilization has always been this fight with its like between its Christian side and its like Enlightenment side. Those two elements have always kind of been warring inside Western culture. And we're definitely seeing the more secular nihilistic side kind of win out a little bit more. But like the parts that we value about Western culture are so Christian influenced. It's amazing. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we are up to date on you. Papers flying around. So now we're going to play a game. Please don't laugh, okay? I worked really hard on this game.
Don't laugh at him. He's sensitive.
This is a no laugh. This is the no laugh challenge. Don't laugh at me.
Or me.
But these are
I have
cards.
a big ego. Don't laugh at me.
When Sam and I were munching on our chicken wings, I took out these cards. They were recommended by my small group leader at the time. And they're dating cards.
Yep.
So Sam and I literally had a date over chicken wings, which is kind of funny. And so now we're going to try them on you. So I'm going to split the deck.
You do whatever.
Did I shuffle this wrong? Because some of the cards are backwards and right. So, okay. Whatever.
This is why you're the art guy.
He's an engineering guy. He'll assort the deck for me. I don't think there's any jokers in this deck.
What do you want me to do with
Let's just do that. We're not even gonna
take turns?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So let's see. I'm gonna try something. That's a little too deep. Oh yeah. The superpower one was the one that Sam asked last time. And I believe, if I have this right, I remember him saying he could fart with his clavicle.
I do remember that. I've got one for you.
Okay. Let's just start with you.
Your house and everything you own catches fire. All your pets and people are safe, but you get to save one item. What do you choose?
I would also add the Bible. Let's add the Bible in there too.
Yeah.
The Bible's safe.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I would not save my Bible. There's so many Bibles. Maybe that makes me a bad Christian, but I would not save a Bible from a house fire.
See, I would actually probably save my Bible because I have stuff written in it that's so important to me, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm going to get a new Bible, because I'm going to have to get a new Bible at some point because my other Bible's falling apart.
Put the old one in the attic. So aside from the Bible that you may or may not keep,
yeah,
or do you just want to double down on the answer, the Bible?
No, okay, so other things that I would keep, so save from the burning house. Say probably my journals.
Yeah.
I have so many memory keeping items lying around, but I'd say my journals have, like, that is the gold that I will treasure. I'd probably toss all my other things. And I've been tossing my other memory stuff over the years. I've been tossing my memory items over the years, like my name tag from some stupid club I joined when I was 7. And my achievement from
participation trophy.
8th grade participation. Yeah, all those like school projects. Like I toss those over the years as I get older. But my journals have like, okay, this is like the thing I'm going to always keep. But I also have a load of comic books that I made when I was 7 too, and I want to keep those.
You got to pick one, journals or comic books.
Shoot, there's another one too because of my letters that I write with my best friend.
Got to pick one.
Shoot.
Journals, comic books, or letters?
I know, time is running out. House is on fire.
There's too much carbon monoxide and dioxide.
All right, I'm gonna bring my letters I made with my best friend.
It's a good answer.
I wrote because those are there's some funny stuff in there.
It's a good answer.
There's treasure, there's gold in there too. You guys don't even understand, but I do. And my friend does too. Shout out Caleb and Ben.
Shout out Caleb.
Yeah, so we'd write these.
I don't know Caleb.
Yeah, So we wrote these letters to each other and we pretend we were secret agents.
Oh, that's fun.
So then there'd be something political going on. So yeah, he was really into politics at the time. World politics, not the stupid Republican Democrat stuff, but like the world politics. Who's in charge of what country? What are the border lines of, Poland and what, like the transitioning of powers in Saudi Arabia and the oil and everything. So then he would write letters based on what he was studying at the time.
Yeah.
And, we put ourselves in it. We put ourselves in the story.
That's cool.
And there'd be some like goofy stuff like, you have to go down, your mission is to go on 7th Street where you will find a fat man in a t-shirt who is carrying a neon pink sign that says world-class secret agent. And you're going to sit next to him on the park bench and you will give him the passcode. What did you eat for lunch? And he would reply, chicken nuggets, and then he'll tell you the secret mission, and then you have to go on an airplane, fly to Bulgaria, and whatever.
That's fun.
It was so great.
It's a good pick.
I'd have to keep those things.
That's a good pick.
Who was your first? Because that was my first true friend. Who was your first friend? What brought you together?
My first true friend.
That is deep. Maybe
true friend deep. Is a loaded question.
Let's go when you just think of best friend.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know if I'd say best friend, but I will say the friend that I've had the longest. His name is Jacob. And he's from Ohio.
Oh, nice.
And
hello, Jacob from Ohio.
Yes, hello, Jacob from Ohio.
You're probably going to hear this episode because I don't know, you're probably going to send it now.
Unless you dip halfway through, you will be listening to this episode.
Oh, is he going all the way back?
Huh?
Is he going all the way back and listening all the way through?
No, but I'm going to send it to him. So unless he gets bored halfway through, he's going to hear this part.
This episode. Yes. Yeah.
Jacob is my friend who I've known the longest. Mm-hmm. We met because my dad was a church planter in Ohio. Mm. And he started attending the church with his parents and stuff. And we became friends. And like, because I moved around so much, I didn't have a lot of stable friendships. Mm-hmm. And that was like the longest lasting stable friendship I have, which is like very valuable to me as a pretty transient person, you know, moving around a lot. So I would say in that sense, probably Jacob. Mm-hmm. So
that's great.
Now, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What irrational fears do you have now?
Oh, no.
To be irrational fears.
Irrational fears.
That's right.
Okay, I do have one for this. Oh, this is bad. Okay, so this is an issue that I've just been very self-conscious about. And it's that my face isn't perfectly symmetrical. And it really, really bothers me.
Yeah.
Do you notice that my face isn't symmetrical?
No.
You don't notice?
No.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I made that same realization. It must be because
I'm crazy.
I made the same realization a few years ago. I was like, my face isn't perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah, because like I look in the mirror and I'm like, this jawline looks really good.
Yeah.
Fully fleshed out. This one is wimpy. And you can tell, like, when I look in the mirror.
Oh, man.
Like, this one is, like, caved in. It feels like it's sinking in. And whenever I clench my jaws, I'm like, the teeth aren't, like, perfectly aligned. And I have this fear that this head, and this always happens, too, when I'm, like, drinking coffee. Like, the more caffeine in my system, the more I notice it. And have this fear that the more coffee I drink, the more my head is caving in on itself.
That's hilarious. Well, you know what? It is an irrational fear.
It's irrational.
I didn't ask you to share rational fear.
It fits the bill.
It fits the bill.
Yeah, my face, the right side? The right side of my face is caving in on itself.
I am not a medical expert, but I'm going to assure you that the odds that your face is caving in are exceptionally low. Is it going to help you sleep better at night?
Yeah, I think so. Right. Because I was sleeping way more. I started to sleep more on this side so that I can get this jaw to like...
I don't think it's going to happen, buddy.
Support this one more.
Why do I relate to that kind of stuff? Dude.
I don't know. When was the last time you tried something totally new? I feel like that's kind of a vague question.
I kind of like that question because I know what I'm going to answer.
That's good.
The last time I tried something totally new is when I said yes to being a podcast co-host and a BSF group leader.
Oh, yeah, because you're a group leader now.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be a group leader.
Yeah.
That's a little spooky.
That's sad because I'm not in your group.
I know. You know, I am. They did that on purpose. They specifically don't puerto people who are like already good friends because they want like the group dynamic to grow. It's intentional. They're very smart about
intentional.
it.
Okay. That's weird that they already... Well, you must have told them that I am on this guy's podcast. Yeah. I'm like, how did they know that? They have spies.
They're spying on us. I have a question for you.
Okay.
What character from a book, movie, or TV show is most similar to you?
Didn't Sam ask this one to me? I feel like Sam asked this one to me too. And I said The Hobbit from Lord of the Rings.
Which Hobbit?
Oh, that's a good question.
There's a lot of them.
Because you can have a Hobbit that is good-natured, goes on adventures. You can have the Hobbit that isn't talked about in the story because he just lays around at home not doing anything.
Do you self-identify as the Hobbit who stays home and lays around and eats bacon? Or do you self-identify as the Hobbit that goes on an adventure and fights a dragon? Like in a Petersonian sense. Fight the dragon of chaos. That's a joke.
Well, I'm also thinking about this. There's like the Frodo, Sam dynamic where like Sam is like the supporting role and he's very encouraging and uplifting, and Frodo sometimes gets disappointed.
He basically loses his innocence.
As the
Lord of the Rings progresses.
And he also loses his passion as he's weakened.
His will to live.
And he needs...
You self-identify as Frodo because you're losing the will to live.
But he's also like the most important character of the story. So I feel weird about saying that.
You relate to being the most important character of the story. No, that's not the question really, though. It's kind of like...
No, it's kind of...
Who do you relate to?
Yeah. And the reason I said Hobbit was because I like to lie around eating bacon and reading books.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. And sipping tea. Having a really nice living room.
Oh, yeah.
Nice crackling fire.
So Bilbo Baggins before he goes to fight the dragon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, like, in this metaphor, who's the dragon?
Oh. Finding a girlfriend. There's a real dragon.
The dragon. That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you have a question for me?
Dating is hard now.
Oh, no kidding.
I don't know. Have you... oh, boy, that would be too deep. Have you ever had a girlfriend? We don't have to go too deep in that because she might be hearing this episode.
We'll cut that.
Or she might not. Yeah, I'm cutting that out.
What's the real dragon? Finding the girl. That's funny.
That's partially serious.
No, it is serious, but it's still funny.
It is funny. Yeah, I want to recommend dating, folks. Don't ever date.
Don't date.
Just get married.
Yep.
Blindfold, just send it.
Yep.
Just make sure she's Christian.
And cute.
Yeah.
Or don't.
Or, yeah.
I guess that part's optional.
But reformed. Make sure she's a good reformed...
at least 4 points.
Equally yoked. Let's just put it that way. That's right. Because not everyone in our audience is reformed, but you need someone equally yoked.
That's right.
There we go.
Because your music production career.
I don't know if I want to go there. That's too political. What is your... Because it's interesting. They put two very Christian values.
Sure.
Attributes of God, let's say, in this. And I find that interesting because I think these are secular. But what is more important to you, justice or forgiveness?
Wow. I love that question.
Isn't that a great question?
What is more important to you, justice or forgiveness?
I'm just surprised that... I'm assuming they're secular, but they nailed it.
That is an incredible question because I think objectively speaking, there isn't a right answer.
Unless it's both.
Exactly. Like literally, that is the only acceptable answer.
Because what's forgiveness without justice?
Yeah, what are you forgiving them for? Other than the fact that they've been unjust for you. But justice without forgiveness is basically just like cosmic hell.
Yeah, for everyone. Hell for everyone.
In the Bible, a lot of like opposite virtues are often played together, like justice and mercy. And like God is described as embodying both perfectly. They're like his perfections. And they're not played against each other. So I think a card that forces them to be played against each other doesn't understand how, for example, God can be both just and the justifier of the ungodly, right? Because the substitutionary atonement unites both God's justice and God's forgiveness. Now, that doesn't answer the question of which one I prefer. I have to say, I personally would have to fall on the side of forgiveness, not because I'm super spiritual, but because I know that in my mindset, I have such a big focus on redemption and fixing things to the point where maybe it's a weakness that I don't always strive for what's right, but more repairing what's broken. And that's a strength and a weakness, I think. So that would be my answer.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay. I'm scared.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Now I have to think about all the pieces of advices. Advices? Advicees. Advice-I. Oh, no, it's just advice.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think about all of it. There's some advice that was given to other people that when the person told the story of when they got that advice, I was like, that's really good advice. And it's sort of just kind of been impressed in my heart.
You have an example of that?
But yeah, so this is like an example. So this isn't my answer, but my brother asked my grandpa. It's out in the fields of Central California where there's just orchards, hot weather, and a lot of conservatives. The conservatives of California. Lots of ammons.
Ammons.
Yes, ammons. And we do say ammons in Central California.
Yes, it's horrible.
My brother asked him, so, like, what made you be so successful? He said this, if you help other people, they'll help you. It's kind of like,
Wow.
And he poured into a lot of people, and a lot of those people that he poured into too didn't necessarily, I think, return the favor. But my grandpa's poor, their whole family's poor, they're making money to support their they were newlyweds, so he's working really hard, working on his farm, working on his fields, whatever he's got. He'd be helping other people along the way too. Later on, decades later, it becomes, he helps other people along the way, but then decades later, one of the things he does is be a pilot, and he'd fly his own private airplane, and he would use it to serve angel flights, I think was what the organization was called. They would fly burned victims to their summer camp for the day. I don't know, it was a Bible study camp or something, and then fly them back over the mountains. Just people with like horrible burns, but so just helping them out helped our family a lot. Pretty incredible. But yeah, if you help people, they can sometimes help you.
It sounds kind of like a leap of faith a little bit, like Soren Kierkegaard talks about. He talks about taking this leap of trust in God and not just being resigned that what happens happens, but truly believing that in trusting, in giving to some extent, God truly wants what's good for you. The way that Abraham didn't just shrug and say, I guess I'll sacrifice Isaac. He genuinely believed that God wanted good for him. And that was why he had faith. And God repaid him more than he could imagine. Right. That's kind of what it makes me think of, that sense of pouring into others with the faith that, like, God will do something great with it.
Yeah. Let's do one more.
One more for each of us?
It's been a long episode. Yeah. Let's just say that everybody in the entire world has the gift of salvation already. And now, if you could gift all humans one thing, what would it be?
Gift all humans one thing, what would it be? And the answer is not the mandatory Bible answer.
No.
We took out all the easy ones. And this has to be a physical object.
I guess it could be a virtue or a quality or something, too. Or a physical.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a virtue or quality, I think the Bible talks about like the three, was it faith, hope, and peace?
Yeah, peace, love, hope, joy.
We're going to need to cut
this. But the greatest of these is love.
Yeah, the greatest of these, whatever
faith,
the list
hope,
of virtues.
It's faith, hope, and love.
Faith, hope, and love, yeah.
The greatest of these is love.
Yeah. I think I would want to gift myself with more love. Like more love for God, more love for other people. Not just because like I feel like that's the right answer, but because I think once you have that main connection to what matters, everything else just kind of falls into place. So one of these things, Augustine, also going back to St. Augustine again, one of these things he said, if God is your greatest love, everything else falls into place. Everything else falls into his right place, right? So like we have so many people in the world who need hope about their situation, about what they're going through. I think if we had God's love in us and a love for God, so many of these problems would just like go away. So many of these problems of hopelessness, problems of like pain, healing from trauma, things like that. Love is just so redemptive. It breaks in and changes everything. Yeah. And that's really powerful because we have a world in need of so much change. You know what I mean? We have a world in need of so much redemption. So I would say more love, not just like romantic fuzzy-duzzy love, but like a genuine, meaningful connection with God. And out of that is going to flow so many things that the world needs really desperately. And I need really desperately. You know, this isn't an abstract thing. This is me going through my day-to-day life and saying, what do I think about? Why do I think about me a lot? I don't like that. I don't think I'm supposed to do that. So yeah, I would say that. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but it is sincere. I have a last question for you. unless you want to talk about that answer.
Well, the only thing I was going to say was that Ben Bessett really brought that up. That was a great point in our slavery episode. And atheists keep just pitching, man, your God talks about slavery. It talks about slavery. There's slavery all over in the Bible. And it's just like, you forget that God is dealing with a culture of slavery.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going to talk about slavery. But listen, the heartbeat of the Bible is the double love command: love God, love others.
Yep.
There's technically 613 laws in the Old Testament or whatever, but they're built on just those two principles.
Yep.
Love God, love others. If everybody did that, all of our problems would go away.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have slavery. And the God of the Bible wouldn't be talking about slavery. So we brought this on ourselves, people.
Yeah.
You humans out there.
All you other humans out there who haven't figured this stuff out like we have.
Yeah. We're righteous. Just kidding. We're hypocrites, just like you. Hypocrites. If you're accusing my church of being full of hypocrites, I would tell you this. We're not full. We have room for one more. And it could be you.
It could be you. That's right. What's the rule?
Come to my church.
If you find the perfect church, don't join. You might ruin it.
Yeah. That's another good one.
True. So true, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end on a really lighthearted, easy to answer one. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, no. Actually, going back to the selfishness thing, I do think about myself. I do think about my legacy a lot because I have this fantasy in my mind that I'm going to be so famous and that generations of people after me are going to remember me as somebody.
I think we're all wrestling with the root of pride in our hearts.
Yeah. I think about it's truly do. I think about my legacy. It's weird.
Which seems funny as like people in our mid-20s in the 21st century in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The fact that we're like thinking about our legacy.
And
it's
we're not important.
Like, we're like not important.
We are not important.
We are not important in the grand scheme of things.
We so want to be important.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. But that's just interesting how, anyway, that's a whole nother different topic. So how do I want to be remembered? I want to be actually remembered as the camera guy, podcaster, Christian producer that actually saved the day.
Single-handedly making Reformed theology
setting
cool.
The foundation. Yeah, single-handedly setting the foundation for how, Reformed seminaries.
The Third Great Awakening ushered in by Alex Sikma.
Because I made it global, folks.
That's right.
I took the internet. I learned about the Googles. I learned about
so much about the Googles
and the social media. And I'm like,
that's right.
This is really fun. I like doing this. I was kind of okay. But yeah, just like being known as the guy that like set that foundation, because YouTube is a wild west right now.
Absolutely.
It's brand spanking new. So the fact that I'm kind of here doing this is like, I do actually see it as a unique situation because there's not a lot of Christian podcast editors out there that are like doing this for their church. Probably because it's an overlooked skill, not just for the secular people, but I'd also say for the church people as well. As we're looking into the future, though, that's becoming less and less of the case, especially after COVID happened. Yeah. Church people, I would say universally, are seeing value in broadcasting their sermons online. Absolutely. If you look at sermon audio, it's a big booming thing.
Big yes for sermon audio, by the way.
So yeah, I think it's becoming a bigger thing, especially for not quite the unreached people groups yet, because there's no infrastructure yet. Yeah. But for the Muslims especially, like anywhere, the Chinese on the internet, like there are ways that we could sneak in the gospel with the widespread use of the internet. So it's kind of cool that we can kind of influence that.
So I guess pivoting from there a little bit, you were saying how you want to be remembered as somebody important in the kingdom. How would you want to be remembered?
How would I want to be remembered?
How would you want to be remembered? If your motives were completely pure, how do you think you would want to be remembered then?
Okay, so my motives were completely...
If your motives were completely pure.
You mean not like
how do you think you'd want to be?
Yeah. So you're asking for like my fleshy flesh?
How does your spiritual self how does your new creation redeemed by Christ actively?
Yep. Okay. So yeah, I asked it I answered it from my flesh perspective, because that to me is the realist perspective. Like I'm still dealing with that. Yeah. But if I was like fully, completely renewed,
centered in the will of God.
Yeah. I guess being the servant that would work on the whatever job I'm put into, I am doing it for God and not for people. Ugh, that sucks saying that because I want to do things that people notice.
Yeah, I relate to that.
But scrubbing a floor at Russ's on Plainfield isn't really noticed by anybody except my manager.
Good manager.
So it's just like, but that's just where God has me right now.
Yeah.
And I want to make it known to even I still want to make it known to the employees that, hey, people who are transformed by Christ do the best work.
Yeah.
Because it's not pointless, nihilistic.
Yeah.
It's real. Because there's a real God that we're serving. That's the one we're serving. That's why we can do the best work, even if it's in the most humble jobs, like scrubbing floors.
Yeah.
Still care about what we do. You kind of notice that in the next 2 or 3 generations of atheism, nihilism, they get less and less passionate about the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of unfortunate. That's another reason why I was like passionate about the gospel, because I just want people to be passionate about living again.
Yeah.
That's what the gospel is about too. It's about life.
It says that there are things in the universe that actually matter because there's a God who gives them meaning.
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying is these like silent and unnoticed acts of service, I think we're going to be surprised by, in the grand scheme of things, when the kingdom comes and God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven, who served God faithfully. I wonder if it's not necessarily going to be a bunch of like super big, high profile names, but like quiet people who did the work God put them there to do faithfully without anybody noticing for decades. Mm-hmm. I think Christ's reminder that the last shall be first and the first shall be last, that he who wants to be the greatest shall serve the least of these, shall be at the back of the line, shall be washing people's feet. That's a huge reminder to us, and it's like a huge wake-up call to the fact that we don't necessarily live that. But that God is working in our hearts to be transformed into the image of Christ. So there is a real sense in which we are becoming the new creation, that we are being made one with Christ, both like in a theoretical justification-y sort of sense, but like in an actual like sanctifying, purifying, working out our salvation kind of sense.
Mm-hmm. It's a great place to end it.
Great place to end it.
Catch you on the flip side.
Stay safe out there, folks.
You've been listening to the Disruption Podcast, where we disrupt the culture and place Jesus at the center of it all. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing from wherever you are. You can also follow us on Instagram. Once again, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode.